Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the New Earth Leadership Summit, inspiring spiritual entrepreneurs like you to step into their personal power so that they can become the leaders of New Earth. And today I have with me a very special person. Her name's Tammy Scarlett. She is a multipreneur. Let me just break down some of the things that Tammy does in this world. So she is an AVP of Mortgage Lending for Guaranteed Rate on a top 1% team in the United States, which is amazing. She is also the executive director of Unify, which you're going to see a lot of people connected to Unify in this summit. And I'm so excited about that. And what else? Tammy also, she is the founder of the White Lotus Global Initiative, a blueprint for healing the world. And you've also served as a facilitator for Hive Global Leaders, which is perfect because, of course, today we're talking about leadership. So Tammy, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Therese. It's such a pleasure to be here. I'm so excited about this summit. I'm actually excited for it to air so I can watch all the other segments. I'm super glad that you pulled this together. The need for it is really now.
Yeah, I agree. And I'm loving that there's so much alignment around this. I love it. So when the universe asks you to step in, you don't always know what you're stepping into, but if it's in alignment with a higher plan, it really does come together. And that's been my experience with this summit. So Tammy, I would love to hear your story about leadership, because like I said, you have so many paths. I didn't even mention that, you went to Harvard, right? To Harvard University. You got an education in anthropology. You've also worked with many Native Americans and First Nation communities. I mean, there's so much that you've done. And Tammy and I, just as a backstory, we are good friends. We've known each other since, I always joke that I met Tammy at the end of the world, because we really became friends right around the predicted end of the world, which was December 21st of 2012.
Yeah.
And
what a time.
It's been some time, and it's just been beautiful. So I've been able to witness a lot of Tammy's journey and watch her continually evolve. So can we share that story with the audience, just about how you found yourself where you are today?
Yeah, I mean, goodness, how do I find myself where I am any day? it's always an unfolding, and I just think that when we're talking about leadership, a big part of that is just being willing to just step into the fullness of who you are, wherever you are, just right where you're at. And if you do that progressively, I believe the doors that are meant to open will open. Leadership isn't, I talk about this in my coaching and mentoring work all the time, is that leadership is not a resume. Leadership is not credentials. It isn't the approval of a particular audience. Leadership is really you observing and acknowledging all of those things that make up who you are, your very own Swiss Army knife of like skills and experiences and the things that light you up, and allowing that to be present and even accessible to those around you. That's really leadership, because if you're stepping into your full light in that moment, right, that not only emanates to everybody around you, but it also gives that permission, as if we need it, for us to recognize that we can do the same thing. And that's leadership. That is actual leadership.
Oh my gosh. You see, this is what it's like interviewing intuitive people, is they already answer questions that you're about to ask. It's so great. I'm just like, let them speak. I love it. So, well, let's talk a little bit. So, we'll take a segment, because I know telling our story and our journey can be a big story to tell. Right. So, when we met each other, you were doing, you had a mortgage business. That was something that you were working on. You also create beautiful jewelry, and that's how we connected, because at the time, it was the weirdest experience, but I had a store of my own, an art storefront type thing. And I was doing consignment work with a bunch of different artists. That's how I met Tammy. I fell in love with what she was creating, in terms of product. And I was just like, this girl knows what she's doing. And I want to know her more. And that's kind of how I approached her. I was like, I like what you do. Let's hang out.
Yeah, let's go to coffee. P.S. Put your jewelry in my store.
So from there, right? So it, you know, again, meeting somebody, just seeing what they do, you don't know the potential that they're holding. And I remember when you were accepted to Harvard, what led you, let's start there, because I feel like there's a lot around that. I mean, you were doing the First Nations community work first. So let's talk about that and maybe how it merged into this, and then the coaching, and then everything else that's happening.
I mean, I should probably preface by saying that absolutely nothing on my journey has been linear. Not a single thing, never.
Right.
It just isn't. And I think that that's true for many of us. And it actually, just want to reiterate, it goes back to that being a Swiss Army knife of things, right? That's not a me thing. That's an all of us thing. We all have this kind of diverse bouquet of all these different beautiful things that make up the totality of the person. And I think that in this, our societal container makes it challenging for us to be able to participate in all of them, or in many of them at one time, because we're expected to fit into a linear container that moves us from point A to point B. I just resisted that container a lot growing up, but I still wanted to be able to, grow in certain areas and feel like I was generating success by my own metrics and not the metrics of people around me. So, to answer your question, back then, I had suffered some losses. My stepbrother had passed away. My grandmother, who was my last remaining grandparent, had passed away. And my little puppy that I had just bought, she was a tiny little miniature applehead Chihuahua, and she had passed of pneumonia. And it was like so many blows in a row that I just kind of thought, like, man, there's magic. Life is short. It's also, decently long, but it's short. And what magic are you really living into right now doing the things that you're doing? So I just kind of called everything to a screeching halt. That was when I opened the jewelry company, because I said, I at least need to try to give myself something artistic to do, to play with, and I can monetize it or not. I can try to monetize it and not attached to the outcomes there, but I want to play in this space and give myself room to do that while I incubate for a while to do the deeper learning, because the grief triggered in me this deeper learning. And then I knew it was time to dive into those deep waves. Whenever you do that, some major stuff is going to come up. It's like, get ready, brace yourself for all the layers of all the things, even the ones that you thought you had cleared, to be like the next layer. So I went deep, and I hadn't even actually heard of the area of study of anthropology at that point. What I had thought that I had always wanted to do was study at Oxford and study philosophy, because I love literature and I love history and I love the way that people thought in ancient times. And I wanted to dig into their minds and just spend time ruminating on all those things. And when I was looking into applying for that program, I had just finished reading the book Ishmael, which is a great societal construct breaker, as is Burning Man. and I had just finished that book and was kind of lit up by the possibility that there might be other people out there in the world that are also okay with breaking societal constructs, that just kind of want to break free and be this beaming light through it all. And so I looked into the Oxford program. And on my way there, I happened upon this other program that was happening at Harvard that I wanted to, that I saw. And I was just like, oh my gosh, that's cool. And previously my mortgage company that I had before was called Veritas Mortgage Group. And then Harvard, of course, their main motto slogan is Veritas, for truth, actually named after the goddess Veritas. And so I was like, this is kind of cool. And so then you have to do a trial, for that program, you had to do a trial where you had to get certain grades in order to be admitted as a degree candidate. And I was like, okay, I want to just go there and do that, but I'm paying for this housing, I'm paying for this car. I can't duplicate those expenses right this second. So I'm going to need free housing, universe, if I'm going to do this. Yeah. And I felt like, okay, well then just go get it. So I opened my laptop and typed in Craigslist, like Boston free housing. And there was a post that had been made 45 minutes prior by a lady who was like, this like free room and board in exchange for watching my 8-year-old son on Thursday nights. And I was like, so I sent her an email right away, like, here's what I want to do, like, la, la, la. And then she was like, let's jump on a phone call. Within 3 hours, I had talked with her, she had talked with my mom, and we had a flight scheduled to go do a meet and greet in Boston. And then, you know, from there, it all happened very fast is my point, because I let the shift come about within me. I knew that it couldn't stay the way that it was anymore. I knew it was going to be scary. I knew it was going to mean a lot of work and letting a lot of grief and difficult things come up. And I wanted it to, like, come wash over me so that we can go do the big things. And then it just kind of all unlocked from there. And I don't mean to say that every manifestation thing is always like that. I think we know that that's not true. There are seasons. I mean, I just came out of, you know, a 2-year incubation that was, you know, going on while this entire global thing was happening. I really had to sit with that and study that quietly. It didn't feel appropriate for me to be a voice in the midst of that. It was a listening time for me. But I do think that when you feel inside that things want to unlock and it's scary, the coolest possible thing you can do is just be like, okay, unlocked. So it'll all happen.
Yeah. That, I mean, it's so true. I am 100% with you on that, because in fact, I just did one of my Karma Cards episodes about the fact that when you leave your comfort zone, you're going to meet your fear. It's guaranteed. So you might as well lean into that. Be like, okay, I'm ready to meet you, because that is the transformational moment right there. As soon as, and I was likening it to lucid dreaming, because in lucid dreaming techniques, let's say we were lucid in a dream and it turns out it's a nightmare. If the being of your nightmare, if you're running from it, it will continue to chase you. Just like if you run from what you're afraid of, you will continue to be afraid of it. And the technique is to turn and face it, you know, confront it, look at it, say, I see you. What do you want? You know, and lean into that moment. And it always transforms for people. It's always a transformative moment of information and awareness and true vision. And so what I'm hearing in your story is that you're saying that that's how you've been approaching your life, is just you put out the request to the universe. This is what I want to do. Help me make this happen. And then you are doing what I'm constantly coaching people to do. The action step is to prepare, right? Imagine if you said, I want free housing, but then you did nothing to help that come about, right? Nothing, no research, no looking, just sat there and waited, which, you know, sometimes I feel like we're misinformed about that. Like we're just, that's what surrender means, is I just do nothing. I sit there and wait. And it's like, no, I let go of what it's going to look like, right? What my life is going to, what my life path is going to look like. I want to go to Oxford. I want to study, you know, philosophy, but you held that in such a beautiful way where that's the intention. Here's what I'd like. And yet the universe was like, look at what else is here, right? And you didn't shut that down, because you easily could have said, nope, not a match. And really tried to push for the original dream. And what I'm seeing you talk about is how you leaned in, and so many of the other things that you've brought forward, including working with Unify, including the White Lotus Global Initiative. Didn't these things come from you leaning into that opportunity that was being presented to you?
Absolutely, they did. It wasn't like, not in the sense of like, I went to Harvard and then all of a sudden that was a ticket. I mean, I think some people think that, but in truth, what it really was I went there and came right up face to face with myself and had to really figure out who I am and what it is that I want to do in this world. What am I here for? and what do I want to do? And I got to play with all the ways that I could affect change, and all the ways that, like, ask all the questions about what would, if the sky isn't even the limit, as my mentor says, then how far would we go? What would we really do? What would we really want to see if we knew that that was true, that there's absolutely no limitation? And I think sometimes we kind of consider that question as cliche, but it's a deeply powerful meditation question and journaling and reflection question, because those things will start to tell you, they're kind of like your map for like what to actually do next. You just have to then get over the part that they're really, really scary. So for me, I got back home. Energetically, I had changed. I got back home to Washington State after I left Boston. Energetically, I had changed. A friend of mine called me up and said, "Hey, do you want to come with me to do this trauma healing work with a First Nations community up in the Yukon?" And I'm like, me? Like a little like white girl from America? You want me to go up to the Yukon and work with a tribe? Like, for trauma healing? Like, why would they want me there? Like, the big issue, a lot of the big issues are these racial tensions that are passed down from egregious things that happened in previous generations. And their struggle is sometimes with people that look like me. And so why would I be the person that gets called to do that? But energetically, I was, through the other energetic thing that happened with that mutual friend, why she was called to begin with. And then there we go. We're driving on up to the Yukon and facilitating these beautiful, beautiful healing sessions that were, I have videotapes of them that I probably should at some point release, because the chief at that time asked that they, be shown so the children, the next generations can see them. It was so deeply powerful and moving. And I got to be present at that. That was a deep honor and a deep privilege for me. It had nothing to do with credentials. Absolutely nothing to do with credentials. I made myself available to the universe. My heart and my soul and my body and my mind, all of my parts of me knew that I was aligned for that kind of opportunity and that kind of work. So all that was left for there to do was just the door to fling open, So that, yes, it things did start to shift for me thereafter, but they've also continued to shift. That's the world that I live in. I fly on that level in that zone because I'm unwilling to operate anywhere else now that I get to be familiar with this one, and everybody can be familiar with this one.
All right, let's talk about that. I think you just made a really important statement about the level at which you're working with. So can we get a little deeper into that statement? Because I feel like it's definitely resonant, but what does that look like? Because, if we're staying inside our comfort zone, and there's no, there's no shade for anybody who needs that sense of security, right? All it shows us when we need the comfort zone is that we haven't stabilized our sense of security in ourself yet. But what does it look like once you've started to transform that security, right? So you definitely have internalized most of your sense of security. You've really helped bring it internal so that you can feel it no matter where you go, which allows you to be outside of the container. So talk to me about, like you said, you don't want to compromise going back into a container. You'd rather stay where? So let's identify that for people.
Yeah. Let me preface by saying that, like, this is not about reaching an echelon. This is not like, okay, everybody who's not at this level, get to this level. That's not it at all. It's, in fact, speaking to the comfort and the self-comfort, for me, if I feel like I'm a little wobbly in terms of my self-security, the thing I might actually need to do is go curl up in a blanket and drink hot cocoa or whatever, or eat macaroni, like get some comfort food. I am not above that. Like, I'm going to go get my comfort food, but because then it is like, it can be a nod or a nudge that your calibration needs to kind of reground and recenter before you go and like sprout your next wings and fly into your next thing. So There's no shame in the game, no matter where you are in that cycle. It's a continual, perpetual cycle. What I'm talking about with when I say I'm unwilling to operate at any other level now that I've tasted this one, what I mean by that is this. I launched a new branding for my mentoring that I do, and I called it Quantum Legacy. I call it Quantum Legacy on purpose, because everything that we're doing in this world is creating and building the legacy, the thing that we do in our lifetime, our great work. Every single one of us has that. And quantum, because in quantum science is where all the things that we're told and that we know calculatedly cease to make sense anymore. We can see the results, we can see the outcomes, but we cannot explain how they got there. This is what I'm talking about with the level at which I choose to fly. So it's not like a recipe. It's just saying, I know these things are possible. That's the zone I'm going to play in today. I'm going to say that to God and the universe and myself and everything around me. And then we're just going to go for it, because I dwell in possibility, like Emily Dickinson said that.
Yes. Oh, that is so beautiful. And I love that. It speaks right to my heart, because we have this amazing ability as humans. I mean, we're still discovering just what we are. We haven't even, hit the tip of the iceberg yet. It's like we've touched a toe down at the very top, and we still don't really know what we are. But this idea of living in quantum all time, right? Being able to collapse the field and move to the point in which you want to go. I absolutely love that. And what you're talking about in terms of legacy, right? They talk about how if we're being conscious and aware, right? If we're consciously embodying our lives, then we're going to know that whatever we're doing is going to not only affect our children, but the next 7 generations, right? That what we plant today will be harvested by our future families, our future communities. And so I love the fact that you're bringing that into the forefront in your mentoring that you're doing with people, that you're helping them consider and be conscious of, what is the legacy I create here? Because it's so easy too. And again, it's not judgment. I do it every day, but we get so fixated on like our own life, right? Like, this is what I need. And most of us feel like we're struggling to make it meet in some area, maybe in lots of areas, or at least one area where like, I don't know how to get these ends to come together. And my goal with this summit is, as we see that we can step into our sovereignty, into our leadership, we start to realize we have the power, to bring it together and not only just survive our life, but really thrive. And when we can move into the thriving state, I feel like that's where you're guiding people, is in that thriving state, because then you can actually think about, how is what I'm doing today having an impact on people I'm never going to meet, and yet they'll be directly affected by my own resonance.
Absolutely, they will. Absolutely. And Therese, I have kind of like my own take on a lot of things, because for a very, very long time, I only talked in my own head about this kind of stuff, not to other people. But my take on what you're talking about is a little bit of scarcity pull, right? In our own lives, if that's about finances, or if that's about circumstances or whatever that are happening that make us feel fear or doubt, or they're definitely muffling our vibrance in some way, because that's the energy pull that happens with that cycle. But here's the thing, is that I've recognized, and this is the truest way that it becomes real in my mind and is also resonant in my being, that there are 2 realities happening simultaneously. There is the reality that is your circumstance all around you, that you can measure and physically look at. Now, this would be just like science, right? This is the one that you can measure and you can talk about and react to and all those things. But there's this other reality that's happening in the field of potentiality that's just as, or maybe even more real. And we don't know, because we can't measure it, but we sure can touch it. We sure can tap into it, and we sure can make decisions based on that instead. And the cool thing about that is that you can connect to your future self on this timeline and start living from that future place, and kind of draw that magic back to you right in the present. And that change, it begins to change the actual circumstances around you. And this is not a new, or it sounds so woo-woo, the concept, but it isn't new. You know, one of my favorite authors is Madeleine L'Engle, who my favorite book of hers is called Walking on Water, but she's most well known for her Wrinkle in Time. And in The Wrinkle in Time, she wrote that book she says, write the book that needs to be written. And if it's too difficult for adults, then write it for children. She wrote that book to hack the concept for society. She wrote the book so that people would understand the tesseract, the wrinkle in time, that you can collapse time. She already had studied quantum physics. She already knew what was possible. And she wrote it into a children's book in a way that children could understand. So we already knew as kids reading that book that you can hop through space and time. You can reach your forward self. You can go talk to your backward self. What we didn't understand is that when you do that, it can affect change in the present. Actual change in the present. So now that we're beginning to see that those things are true, we have a whole different application, a whole other level is available to us. So I believe that there is a duality to it. There is the circumstantial present, there is the field of potentiality present, and you can opt in to the field of potentiality present so that you can fly on that level.
Absolutely. I love this. So Tammy and I are always like, she's like, soul sister for me, but this is exactly like the area that I get excited about too, because I spend every morning talking to my future self. That's part of my journaling practice is I go to future Therese who, whatever it is that I am confused about, or I feel like I don't know if I can handle this, I just go to the version of myself who's already done it. She's like, it's for her, it's early morning. She's drinking her coffee. She looks fabulous and she's totally relaxed. And she's like, oh my gosh, you've got this. Just do blah, blah, blah. And it's amazing. And it's amazing. And the more that I feel like, what Tammy's talking about, the more you sync up to that, it's like you can't help but become that person. The more you sync up to that experience, the more that you even just, when you're doing it, and maybe you could share your version. For me, I could see how it feels like a daydream. I could see how it feels like I'm just pretending and imagining. And I think, first of all, I feel like in this world, imagination gets crapped on a lot because it's so powerful. And they don't want us to understand the power of using, it's not just visualization, but really like as a kid, we got it, right? Remember playing as a kid of like whatever your favorite game was, you fully embody it. You don't like go, I'm going to imagine that I'm a doctor. You're like, I am a doctor and this teddy bear needs immediate surgery, right?
You step fully into it.
That's right. You fully step into it. And so, just share with me your experience of it, because I know for some people, they might feel like I'm just making this up.
Yeah, you are making it up. That's okay. I mean, my first like visualization experiences that I did by myself, it was really hard for me. I took myself on a personal retreat up to Lake Sunapee and said I was going to stay there for 2.5 days and let whatever I needed come. And I basically imagined an entire ceremony where people stood witness to some things that I needed to heal and what I would become. And then they gave me a new name and I journaled all of it. And it was the realest thing to me. And, after that, I went back to where I was staying at the time. And I had been gifted a massage from a friend of mine who thought I really needed it. And so I went to this massage, and for some reason I shared my crazy story with the massage therapist. She must have felt like super trustworthy there on the massage table. I'm just telling her like, and then I imagined this, and then I did this, and I was just going with it. And I had to let all of my self-judgments roll like over and over again, because I would just be like, what if there's cameras? People are going to think you're crazy, like all this stuff. I just had to let it all. I was like, no, this is for me. I'm choosing this for me. Like, let it go, let it go. And I told her the story and she said, that thing that you envisioned there, that you allowed yourself to go through, is an actual ceremony that's done by this tribe up north. And then she directed me to a peace village from a 27th generation Nuahu lineage holder. And I was able to go there, and I did work with that group for a year. That was also profound to my soul. But it's things like this that when you're doing when you're doing this kind of work where you're imagining something, it's all play. You get to pick. That's the beauty of it. It's like a painting on a canvas. You can pick anything. And sometimes it's scary because there isn't a right answer and there isn't a direction. But the thing that's most resonant inside of you and the thing that lights you up the most is the thing. That's it. Just let it come out however you want. And you can imagine things that seem too big or that seem like they would have a restriction on them somehow. Like people are going to think that's crazy or that's impossible or that certainly shouldn't be my next step. Like, who am I to get whatever? If you have any of those responses to it, those are probably exactly the right things to be imagining and visioning for your future and connecting with for your future. And then in terms of like talking with future self and former self, that can feel a little scary too, because it's vulnerable. You're reaching out to yourself, but just know, like, where you are right now, you're capable, responsible, whole, grown up on the planet, and you know where to go to get answers, and you can be that person for your younger self. And as much as you can be that person for your younger self, the future you knows how to be that for yourself right now.
Absolutely. My spirit team has shared with me that we're constantly the version of you that exists right now is the higher self to your past. It is who past you reached out to. And the future version that you're looking at yourself is your higher self. And you're always going to be in this dance between your higher self and your former self. But even just know how powerful you are right now. You know, we often give our higher self so much credit for holding power without realizing we're constantly embodying higher self at any point in time. So it's so fun to look at, because if you stop and think about it, this version of you sitting here right now having this conversation spoke to a previous version of you when she was like, help me.
Yeah.
I don't know what to do. That was you.
Absolutely. I've done that so many times. And I also want to offer for anyone who might be listening who is struggling with the idea of timeline work and feeling like, well, that's not possible, or it doesn't feel possible for me. Sometimes for myself, I've had to overcome a lot of, scripts or societal constructs or whatever logic that is placed in my brain in order to get to many of the things that I do in my practices now. And with this one in particular, I will say it has helped me to just keep in mind that time is an experience. The way that time is happening on our planet is literally only connected to the way that our planet spins and the gravitational pull. Outside of this planet, time doesn't happen the same at all. It's just here. And so if you feel like, well, that's not possible because time is this thing that's the constant continuum, that's only true for a few miles. And if you understand that our beings are bigger than just this, space that we're taking up right here in this physical body, then it I think can help to understand how we might connect beyond that to something that's happening regardless of this particular time experience that's tied to where we are on the planet physically.
Absolutely. I mean, it's so true. It's trippy. I mean, it's trippy because if we're trying to access it with the mind is also structured to follow linear time. So it really gets bunched up when you're like, I'm going to do what now? And you can be in the past, present, future all at the same time, right? So it's really about dropping into the heart center to access. That's where you can access all time. The quantum field is very easy to access from heart level coherence. And kind of what I want to speak of to this. So one of the things that Tammy and I will do sometimes together is we'll come together and offer each other guidance. And I went to Tammy to talk about, because, Tammy has it's beautiful because she not only has this esoteric understanding of the flow of energy and how to work with it, but she's also really grounded it and put it into very practical purposes. So, I mean, that's what I love about one of the things I love about you is you are a very mystical being with a very grounded sense of like earth. Like you can be here in that very, it's not systematic the way that you do it, but there is a system that you're like, okay, I can get into this system and I can work within it while bringing this higher energy through. And so I had talked to her about finances and abundance, because it's something that just over time knowing you, it's clear it's one of your zones of genius. And so what I want to share with the audience today with you here is how does our leadership, or we could look at it as how do we embody future self and create that abundance? Because I know that's something that a lot of us, I kind of feel like, well, especially with the times that we're in, where it's just pure madness out there and the world keeps changing the economic game on us like constantly. That is something that a lot of people feel like, how am I going to be able to stand in future higher self? How am I going to be able to like live on this edge of outside my comfort zone and create what my heart desires when I'm constantly worried about how do I pay these bills? How do I, just keep everything afloat right now? So let's talk about leadership and how that creates or can be a container for our own abundance.
Absolutely. I think that, I've worked for years with people that are in those circumstances that maybe what they're doing for work isn't really feeling good for their soul, and they really want to do something else, but they can't kind of bridge the gap, or stuck in a scarcity cycle and don't know how to get out of that. I will say that money wounds, I have a coach specifically for that topic, separate from the other coaching work that I do in my life. And because money wounds run deep, they're like in our DNA, they're sourced to scarcity issues of the past. We're only a few generations off from the Great Depression. There's a lot of that left in our DNA, and that can show itself through either direct just lack of not seeming to be able to have enough, or through hoarding, making sure that we have enough on hand so that we don't get in that situation. But we also project these issues that we might have emotionally just in our own lives, the ones that are on repeat, we end up projecting those on money as well. And then money becomes our enemy in those ways, or money becomes the thing that we are using to prove that we're right about one of our mistaken beliefs. Like I'm not lovable, I'm abandonable, and therefore money will abandon me. And therefore I do things that allow money to abandon me because I'm satisfying the script that I have about that. So there are a lot of very, very deep healing things for people to go through. If you want to look up my money coach who I use for that, her name is Emily Wilcox, and she is on Instagram as M Makes Money, and she has a free money quiz and some free videos to teach about the different money wounds and which ones might be the biggest one or two triggers in your own life if you want to start that work. Also, I will say that in actually bridging the gap from where you are and where you want to be in your future, those two realities still exist, the one that is circumstantial and the one that is the in the field. So I would say, do the brave thing on the circumstantial page, if that's like, going and asking for a raise, or even just buckling down and carrying out the next 6 months, but change the energy of it so that when you receive money, what it is an investment in that future rather than just getting by right now. So if you're going to receive $100 this weekend, that's all you're going to get. Don't if that's held in a container that says that $100 isn't enough, so it doesn't even matter, oh, woe is me, then that's the energy that is going to be perpetuated. But if you allow that money to arrive to you in a container that goes ding, 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 guess what, everyone, $100 came in towards my investment for my future self, another win, celebration, put it on the calendar. And when the next one comes in, then that's like that too. Then you're just going to find yourself in now a perpetual cycle towards that future self a lot faster. You're going to be able to collapse time and move into that future self faster. And then you also might want to do some work around things that are what you really want to visualize for that future self, so that you want to be able to recognize it when you get there and know what you're manifesting along the way.
That is so powerful. I love what you said about how are we receiving? Because that's something that I see that we all really need to work on is, the give and take cycle. I actually find it's interesting that most of us are more comfortable giving. We're really comfortable with that. And in fact, especially if if you're following beliefs like service to others, which is, the polarity of higher vibrational love-based consciousness is of being in service to one another. So I see a lot of people, that's their jam. They want to be in service to other, and it's so easy for them to give. And yet it's part of a cycle. It's an incomplete circle if you're not have that ability to receive. So what I love about what you said there is like the $100 came in, and maybe it isn't enough to cover everything that would create a sense of financial security for you, but it is how you're holding it, how you're looking at it, how you're treating it, right? And if we start to see that, a lot of people understand too, money's an energy, and we're energy beings. And if we're not looking at the physical bill or the physical or the number on the screen, but we start to see it like an energy, how are we talking to it? You make such a great point there. It's like, if I talk to you in that way, where I was like, oh, hey, Tammy,
you're not enough today.
I wish you would like show up more.
Yeah.
You might be like, geez, like, I've got to go now. Click.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks. I'll go where I'm valued.
Hey, that is a perfect statement, right? That's money. I'll go where I'm valued. Wow.
But like really valued, not like, oh, stacks of cash valued, but like valued, like what are you really, really, really grateful that this came and met you today and did the thing that it could do? Are you like going to dance with it for your future? Can you celebrate at that level, like deep in your soul? Even if it's $20, the amount doesn't matter. The trajectory matters. The energy matters. The relationship matters.
Oh, that's so true. And we did some work together. You did some work with me. We did a little ritual. It was so powerful. I mean, it's very personal to me, so I'm going to keep it to myself. But what we saw underneath the energy or the stories or the fear was something that was just like, I think my jaw dropped when I saw what I was holding in my container. And so I think it's a really, we often like, here's what I tend to see, and I've done this myself too. It's like, when we're in the oh shit place where we're like, I got to make change happen because I'm feeling it and it's starting to hurt. Right. So that's the point in which we're like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do the work. I'm going to get in there. I'm going to look at it, get underneath it. I'm going to start attracting. And as soon as we feel safe again, we're like, okay, I'm good. Like, I'm done. But is that enough? Is that enough?
I mean, it's kind of up to you. Because if you are happy and content and joyful and blissful, like you've gotten to this point and then you're like, cool, I want to bask here for a while, like do that. You want to bask there forever? Do that. I mean, it's just, I think the bigger point is that you get to have all the limitations that you want to have. You get to break all the limitations that you want to break. You get to have it whatever way you want to have it.
And I've done this pattern. So I'm assuming that there's other people who've experienced it, that we didn't really resolve it. Mm-hmm. We didn't really resolve it. So there have been plenty of times where, I remember when you and I used to talk about E squared, right? We do the little exercises in that. It was so fun. I know, it was so fun. So we would do that and it was like, oh, look what I can do. And as soon as we feel like, okay, I'm done, I did it. It's just like this one-time effort and I now can manifest. We end up finding ourselves in a cycle of repeated behavior.
Yeah.
Right. So the work is, I mean, it's layered, I think, like everything else. Right. And I guess what I'm trying to get to is like your approach. If you were working with someone and you saw that was a pattern, right, where they're like, I'm in need, I feel it, now I'm going to do the work because I want to shift my circumstances. And then they get themselves a win, but they start to regress, right? Like, it's like, I did the work and now it's done and forever and ever, amen. It's a done deal.
Yeah. Yeah.
What's the advice that you would have if you saw that pattern when you were working with one of your clients? How would you advise them to move forward?
I mean, the first thing that kind of instinctively comes to mind for me is just leaving the doors open. So don't put a cap on your work. It's just like, I've been saying this a lot recently to clients about goals. If you say, hey, I need to make $5,000 this month, and you set out to go do that, and then you don't make $5,000 this month, what does that say to your subconscious and to the little girl inside and to all the elements of you that came together to try for that goal? I'm not saying it's bad to have a goal, but consider the difference when you say, I want to make $20,000 soon in my future, and let's see how far I get at the end of this month. But every step that I take is going to be aligned with making $20,000, no matter when it is. But whatever I do today, it's aligned with making $20,000. When you get to the end of the month, you may be just under $5,000, and maybe you made $5,000 because you were headed towards a larger trajectory. But either way, your cells are in alignment towards that trajectory. If you came in at 4,900, every cell in your being is like, woo, we're on our way to 20,000, right?
Right.
The ceiling that we put on goals in relation to time keeps us capped in our trajectory. It keeps us capped in our trajectory. So if you are doing a practice and you're like, oh, okay, I did this one, and you put a cap on it, you've now capped your trajectory. There's no reason for a practice to be done ever. If you've done a practice and you're like, that went really well, all you're doing is you're on a trajectory where that now is the thing you do, right? Becoming this more expansive version of yourself.
Yeah. I mean, what you're saying now is locking into place something else I've heard. So from my business coach, she talks about peak performance, but now you've just perfectly described, at least for me, what peak performance looks like. So a peak performer, in terms of what my business coach would say, is someone who's constantly breaking through those ceilings, can always find the next one and be like, right, I'm going to break through that one too. So you just perfectly illustrated what it looks like to create a ceiling. Cause I don't think we know, like we find the ceilings all the time. I find my ceilings all the time, but I don't always know how they got there, and I think that if I'm not tuning into it, if I'm just assuming, I'd be like, oh, that's been there forever. Maybe it wasn't. Maybe I just built that, like you said, by capping my goal. And I didn't even realize I just, made a ceiling right there.
Yeah. I mean, if you walk around saying whatever the thing is, like, I'm going to be the woman who influences 1,000 other women entrepreneurs, that's cool. If you say, I'm going to be the woman who influences 1,000 entrepreneurs this year, everybody's watching you to see if you did it this year. You're watching yourself to see if you did it this year. There's tentativeness around it. But if you just say, hey, I'm the woman who is going to influence 1,000 women entrepreneurs this year, I'm just making this phrase up, but if I say that, it feels good. You feel excited for that person. You feel like you're on board. You feel like you want to know where they go. You're curious because it could be anywhere up there. The trajectory without the ceiling is really the difference maker, I think.
Ooh, I love that trajectory without the ceiling. That's one I want to lock in because, it's just it's another level of being conscious while creating. And the beautiful thing about these conversations is, again, we're not meant to know all the answers. That's why I want to bring Tammy on and be like, let's pick Tammy's brain so we can mine for gold and try to understand something maybe we're not seeing from our perspective. So I love that you're showing us that. That's such a great way to, take that little bit, because it can apply to anything that you're trying to create, that you're trying to create. Notice if you're trying to limit yourself in some way, and it might not. And that's the interesting thing with ceilings, right? Or creating these limiting beliefs, is we're not always aware that was just a limit we created. And so when we're talking about this, we're definitely not going for perfection. It doesn't exist. Perfection doesn't exist. It's more like the awareness. So even if, let's say, you're listening to this and you've created a goal for yourself recently, this is the perfect opportunity to just assess it now. Now, put it through that filter. Is there did I put a self-imposed limit? Is there a timer on me? Am I going to be disappointed? Maybe is that a marker we would look for? Let's say we did say, I want to make $5,000 by the end of May, right? Is that goal? Is there anything that in that goal that could create disappointment for me? Is that a lens you would look through, or would you say, that's not really going to help you?
That very well could help somebody who's like really attached to the goal structure, but the goals are to satisfy our brain. They don't have anything to do with the actual manifestation at all. If a really powerful thing that somebody can do who's wanting to work on their goals and making sure that they're attaining, the things that they're setting out for on this trajectory would be to just look at your actions day in and day out and say, what am I doing today that is not aligned with this future version of me? I said I want to earn $20,000, right? What am I doing today that's not aligned with the person who's making $20,000? Whatever that is. Maybe it's that I'm like, I realized that if I had made $20,000, I would be using a pen that actually writes well. So next thing I'm going to do is get on Amazon and buy myself a pen that writes well, or go down to a boutique in my local community, even better, shop local and get yourself a really nice pen that you feel the $20,000 when you write with it. And now you are living into being that person. You have phone calls and the way that you show up on the phone call. You have scarcity and doubt in your voice because your presence isn't fully in that place. Notice that I'm off a little bit when I get on phone calls, when I have to engage with other people, and then maybe when you come back around to that, before you get on a phone call, you do a little like embodiment of the $20,000 earner person, and then pick up the phone and answer it from that place intentionally. Little shifts in everything that you do every single day, because at the end of 1 month, at the end of 2 months, you have been the person who earns $20,000. What do you think is going to happen next? You're going to get the $20,000. Everything around you is speaking that language. It's hearing it from you, and it's going to respond and like.
So I have an idea, and I would love to have you come with me on this. I think that you and I right now, so, part of this is talking about New Earth, where we're going, what we're creating next. And I think what could be really powerful to do here is for you and I to go into the quantum field right now and talk about money in New Earth. Like, what could we create together, even individually? But as we move deeper into New Earth, it's more collective. It's always collab and collect together. So let's go into the quantum right now. Let's look at New Earth and see what we can create around abundance and money for the people watching.
Let's do it.
All right. So if you're watching, just close your eyes with us and let's take a moment to feel into this energetic of a world where we're already past the hardest part, right? We're already past watching things crumble and fall apart, and we've already moved into a place of creation together. And as we're doing this, like, notice first your own heartbeat in the body. And really feel your energy as living from that space. So you're breathing now from your heart center. And we're visualizing maybe our best day yet together. And I'd like to hand this now over to Tammy to talk to us about maybe how we're feeling with our money or abundance, receiving. So I'm going to hand that over to Tammy now.
There are women on this planet that are already living into these new patterns, that are stepping into the scary territory of letting go of the safe ways to earn money, or the only way that we've ever been taught that we can, and stepping into a new era where it's okay to collapse time. It's okay to take care of yourself. Money comes without struggle. Abundance isn't just a hope or a minimal practice. It's actually a fullness of life, where collaboration is second nature. To bring it up might even be comical because it's just already there. It's already so ingrained, where we see each other, really, truly see each other for the depth of our being and who we are, and the magic of who we show up as in collective spaces. We exponentially create avenues for financial abundance by being together, by allowing ourselves to show up fully, allowing each other to show up fully, by taking the ceiling off of all the expectations, by dropping comparison.
Mm.
And we're able to function together in a world where healing becomes the natural byproduct of our existence.
Mm. When I feel into this space, it's interesting, but I noticed that all of my needs are taken care of already. When I feel into this, my needs are already taken care of. So my sense of abundance is very different. Like my desire to create more abundance in my life has a different type of energy because I'm no longer coming from a place of, will I make it? Right? It's all good. It's all done. It's all met. And we are working for the highest good of all beings. So we don't feel that sense of my needs are met unless we can feel other people's needs are met. It's a top priority because as we move into this frequency, we really start to see that we are one. We truly are one. And so when you feel good, I feel good. When you're winning and you're taken care of, I feel the same. I feel like I'm winning and taken care of. And if anybody's out of alignment with that, our first desire is to correct that, help correct that, so that we all can share the resonance together. So it's a beautiful, like I see a natural, intuitive, empathic ability to course correct for any abundance. If anyone's out of whack, we're like, oh no, let's shift things over this way. So now that everyone's got that and it's good, and it's not the limit either. So it's not like just your needs are met and that's where you stop. It's like, that's where it starts. Yeah. So thank you. Thank you for taking us there and being with us and helping just feel into that space, because even that little moment that we all just had together where we're holding that, we just did it. We just went into the quantum. We saw each other. We were like, look what we can do.
It's really cool over here.
It is. It's really cool. Let's go back a lot.
Yeah.
All right. That was beautiful. Thank you for doing that. That just kind of came up instinctively during the conversation.
Thank you.
Yeah. So what I want to guide people to is, what do you think is a tangible step that anyone could take today to help literally start bringing in that feeling that we just experienced together?
Mm-hmm.
What could we do today? If it was one step you would suggest?
I mean, just one.
I know.
I think one, pick whatever you perceive your greatest bliss to be or your greatest pain point to be and start there. And the bliss is going to be stronger than the pain point, but sometimes we have to focus on the pain points to get ourselves loosened enough to be able to go after the bliss. So either one's okay. There's no right or wrong, but pick one of those and then go after it intentionally. So if it's the money thing and you're like, hey, I'm just really hung up on the money scarcity, then, follow a money coach. If it's that your greatest bliss is going to be able to get a job where you earn 6 figures or 7 figures or whatever, then follow that. If it's that, that in your heart, you're supposed to be operating as a healer, but you don't have any guidance on how to do that yet, then find yourself a healer mentor so that you can begin to unlock those gifts. Whatever your greatest pain point or bliss is, preferably bliss if you if you're ready for it, then
Yeah.
then start there. Get yourself some support so you can unlock those things.
And that's such a beautiful piece of advice, because you literally can do it right now. There's nothing you need. There's no, like, you don't need anything outside of yourself to tap into that and take that action. So that is a great action step to give people that would allow them to start the journey in this moment if they choose to. So now I just want to ask you, after this interview, I know people, especially like hearing how you're talking about creating abundance, how you're living outside the container, how you've set this beautiful standard of living for yourself, people are going to want to work with you. So how
I love to work
with
with people.
Well, how can we do that? How can we get in touch with you? Or how can we get in touch with you?
Yeah, well, first, I just want to say that, I talked with my team prior to doing this talk with you guys today, and we all decided that we would like to give a gift of a talk about. It's like a short talk on the abundance codes. We want to give that to everybody who is here with us today as just a free gift. So the way to both get in touch and to get that gift would be to go on Facebook Messenger and message the Tammy Scarlett team. You can pull it up with those words. And then just mention this summit, this New Earth Leadership Summit, and then they will reply by sending you that recording. And then in addition, you could visit any of my pages that you can look up by Tammy Scarlett, or go to tammyscarlett.com. And there's a bunch of different ways to connect. We have small groups, we have free content. I do offer some packages to work with me directly as well.
That is amazing. So, and the link is here, everyone, so that you don't have to like search for it. You just click on the link that comes with this video, and you will be able to instantly talk to Tammy's team and get that beautiful video that she created on the abundance code. So if you like what you heard today and what we were tapping into and talking about, you're really going to love the video that Tammy's got for you to help take you deeper in to that subject. So I'm really excited for you to check that out. I know I'll be checking that out. And of course, Tammy, thank you so much for being here with us, for going on the quantum journey with us and sharing with us your knowledge and perspective. It's so greatly appreciated.
It's been my pleasure and my honor. And I'm so glad to share this space with everyone here. So much love to everyone.
All right. Thank you so much to those of you who are watching. I hope that you felt that beautiful abundance of our destiny. That's where we're destined to go. So watch this video a couple of times, let it tap in, realize that every time you do that, you are stepping into the field and creating it. And we thank you for doing that. And with that, I will see you at the next episode of the New Earth Leadership Summit. Stay magical.